Hello and welcome to this episode of Community Voices Uganda here on Civic Space TV. I am Phillip Muliisa. On this episode, we are discussing rather something so important in this 21st century, and that is the scope of online freedom and misinformation during the electoral season. You all understand that in this beautiful Republic of Uganda, we are in the heat of the elections. I know that just this week, we have some elections in the National Resistance Movement, but also the other parties experienced some elections earlier on. And going forward, we are looking at the Electoral Commission and the electoral calendar that is quite unfolding. And you saw there is a picking of nomination forms on the side of presidential candidates, overwhelming numbers out there, and certainly we know that as they return them, we expect these numbers to drastically drop, and conclusively by October we should have the actual candidates confirmed, and indeed we look forward to seeing who is actually making it to that list and who is actually ready to lead this country. Hopefully we don't have someone that picked the forms here, because I was told you may find even so if you have them, kindly ask for a vote. So today we are discussing the online space, and we are discussing freedom, we are discussing misinformation, we are discussing disinformation, and I have a very powerful panel here that is quite knowledgeable about this particular subject, and certainly they are going to share their knowledge, their thoughts, their opinion, and recommendation with us as regards this subject, so that we see how we improve our online space as citizens of that environment there, and indeed we contribute to building a better space for this country, Uganda. I am Phillip Muliisa, and I will take the privilege of introducing my panel today, and indeed I will give them a minute to speak to us briefly, first of all, about themselves, but also where they are. We would like to know where you are, how is that environment, and what can we know about your particular location, especially that we are in a very beautiful country, quite unique when you compare Uganda to many of the countries in the world. So any opportunity to share the uniqueness of your location could actually contribute to the economy of that particular location. And I'll start with you, Sanyu Murungi. Sanyu is the communications lead at Internet Uganda. Sanyu, greetings, you're welcome, and how is where you are?
Hello, Phillip. My name is Murungi Sanyu, and I work with Her Internet. Her Internet is a feminist-led organization, and we do work around the interconnection of internet freedoms and internet freedoms for structurally silenced women. We do work around research. We've done work around AI. So what is unique about where I stay, I honestly don't know, because we are in the dust season. I mean, Kira and everyone in Kira knows what is happening. Yes, development is coming. They are constructing the road, but then there is a lot of dust in Kira. So yeah, I don't know if that is unique. But that
all right, thank you so much, Sanyu, for that. You must understand that the people in Greenland, the people in Iceland, the people largely in the Far Eastern Europe would want to have that dust on their doorstep, but they can't have that because they are usually under ice cover. So that's actually unique for your location, but also Kira has many other unique spots that you would probably share on another day. But thank you for joining us, and we can't wait to hear what you will have to share with us on this topic. I have Miss Aloyo Nyeko Omega. Omega is the Advocacy and Communications Officer at FIDA Uganda. Omega, greetings, and you're welcome to the conversation.
Oh, good morning, Phillip. Morning, Murungi. Morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me loud and clear. So my name is Aloyo Nyeko Omega. I work as the Advocacy and Communications Officer at FIDA Uganda. We basically, summarily put, we use law as a tool for social transformation. So very many people look at law as something, or persecution, courts know us, we tailor it and we say, what are the problems with the society? And then we use the law to actually solve those problems. So we are an association of women lawyers that are you know, FIDA has this reputation of school fees, and no, it's not it that, okay, we are going to chase these men for school fees. No, it is really trying to find out in the basic structure of a family, what are the needs that the children may need. We also do a lot of work on legal advocacy, going to parliament, studying bills, seeing what the challenge is. So one of our focus areas right now is online violence. It is something that we're critically looking at in terms of, we even actually did a study on it. So I'm very sure that this conversation fits exactly into that particular thematic area of ours, or we fit exactly into your conversation. What is unique about where I am is I'm just here in Tinder by the roadside. So I want to put a disclaimer that if you hear a hooting or a conductor speaking in the background, just know that is what is unique about my area this particular morning. I'm quite in the hub of it today.
All right. Thank you so much, Omega, for joining us. And again, Tinder is another unique place in this city and indeed country. So thank you for joining us from that particular location. But to the clarity you make about FIDA, because I was wondering, why are my men not joining? And would have been that they saw FIDA somewhere in the description, but now I'm confident they will join us. Oh, that was by the way. The men I have here are very good people, and they are very fit to purpose for their responsibilities. Thank you for joining us, and we shall hear from you as we proceed with the conversation. I too have Mr. Sedrick Otolo. Sedrick is the team lead at Kakebe Technologies. Sedrick, greetings, you're welcome, and how is where you are?
Okay, perfect. Yes, so it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm grateful. And what's special about where I am is the central, geographically located part of Uganda.
All right, Cedric, thank you so much for joining us. First of all, sorry about that fault with your transport machine, and we hope you can get assistance as soon as possible so that you're able to proceed. And indeed, thank you for joining us, and indeed, we can't wait to hear what you have to share with us today. And I expect to be joined by one or two more people, and once they come in, we should be able to speak to them. And let me start with you, Omega, because you said currently you are so much focused on online violence and things to do with that. And you see, some of the things we take for granted and think we know them, and perhaps everyone, because they own a smartphone or a laptop, a smartwatch or anything, we assume we actually literate digitally, and we assume we know what we are doing. But ideally, for someone to be considered a reasonable, to be considered a responsible citizen of the digital space, what should this person know? What should they be able to do and what not to do to be in that category of people in the digital space? Yes, Omega, if we can start from there.
I think that's really a nice question. I like the way you say that we assume that we are literate digitally. I was reading somewhere that digital literacy are the skills that you need to navigate the digital space. So that definition sounds, by its virtue, it sounds very simple, the skills that you need. But a digital space is something that is extremely broad. It is extremely wide. It goes beyond what you think of as Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp. So there are questions of digital safety, data ethics. Do you know that you have data? You know, some people actually do not know that they have data. So for me, it's really a question of not being aloof to the fact that myself, Phillip, Murungi, that we may actually not have all the skills that we need. And with that, I don't know, I'm really losing my train of thought. And with that, because your question was so jam-packed, and with that knowledge, so many Ugandans actually not literate about the digital space. I read somewhere that I think about only 40% of us, 40% of Ugandans are knowledgeable about the digital space. So let's start from there, but then also now looking broadly at what the digital space is. What is the law surrounding the digital space, right? As a human being or as a Ugandan, do you know that there are data protection laws in this country, that there is NITA Uganda, that there is the Uganda Communications Commission, that data regulators are supposed to be what? registered. So the digital space in itself is not just picking up a phone and checking something. No, it is understanding what is the full breadth and the full length of what it means to be online. First of all, by studying what are the laws that govern that space online, what are your duties and what are your responsibilities, and also looking at the fact that the digital space is not just it's not me and you. There is a plethora of actors in that area. So they are the ultimate end users. They are big tech companies. So it is, from your question was not exactly direct, but it showed how ambiguous. We are all just living in a space we do not understand. We think that we know, but we do not know. We are just in a state of being developed, because how should I phrase this? This space is new to us, right? And especially now third world countries, it's extremely new to us. So you find that even the laws they're struggling to catch up. I can give you just one small example so that I don't take up so much time. The question of anonymity, right? So people go online and they say, I want to be called opulent monkey, right? You see, opulent monkey. But what people don't understand about the digital space is that it is an extension of human rights. So it is really a study of the human rights that you have in person, as me and you, Phillip, right now, and online. So in person, would it be feasible for someone to call themselves opulent monkey? Would the law allow for that? No. So why is it that you have that right manifesting itself in a digital realm, right? And then because you've not extremely come to terms with clarity in those areas, then you have abuses with people hiding what? Behind anonymity. So there needs to be a tandem between what people understand to be the reality of things in reality and what the reality of those things is in the digital space, right? Because it's not quite turning up. Everyone seems to be, we are really making the law as we go, and that there are challenges to making the law as you go. Like I've given you the example of online learning. So it's really unique. I think this conversation is very unique. I know that in just my submission, I've touched on a couple of areas, but it's extremely unique. Another scenario I can give is deepfakes, right? And deepfakes, I think you've heard about deepfakes. The first time I heard about it is someone I was doing a training on artificial intelligence and human rights, and the facilitator said, you can go into this app and type ban the Uganda flag. And the deepfake created it. But then he was trying to say that in the field of international law, that is a crime against sovereignty. The insinuation of banning a flag of a country is problematic. Would that be something that you do? But then in just that small example, you have to ask yourself the applications that are making these things. Are they putting in place you understand, checks and balances? So not to take up, I know I've just gone all over the place, but not to take up so much of your time. It's really just, it's such a unique conversation, the digital space and the ambiguity of it, yes.
All right. Thank you so much, Omega, for that. And you actually take us so well in trying to help us understand that. And Sanyu, I want to again come to you because you're in the same space in the communications, and specifically your organization is around the internet. And in building up more on that, us understanding this digital space and what actually are the do's and the don'ts. Look, much of what we use in this society or space are things that just come to us, especially for a country like Uganda. And the smartphones come from elsewhere, Europe, Asia, the America. The applications we use are from that part of the world. All the softwares we use in that whole society. So as we continue to understand what we should do and should not do in that space, how much control do we have on this space, we as Ugandans? And based on that control, how much careful or relaxed should we be while we explore and enjoy our rights on this space as citizens of the world, because we like to say global citizens. How much control do we have, and how much do we do or not do in this particular society? Yes, Sanyu.
Thank you so much, Philip. Do we have control? Is the question. Well, at our internet, we see online spaces as a double-edged sword, because one, it's a space of opportunities, like Omega shared, and then in other instances, it is a space for surveillance, a space for misinformation. We've seen hate speech. A lot of things still happen on the internet. You know, talking about this conversation, exploring the election period, it always gets worse as we get to the election period. There is a lot of surveillance that happens online. We've seen a lot of links of recent being shared on WhatsApp, so many hackings going on, so many people pretending to be from Airtel and MTN calling you for your money that is on your phone. So many things keep happening as we use the social media platforms. So coming back to your question, I want to say we don't have control, but we can try to put a few mitigation measures in place to see that we have little control, because all these social media platforms that we have could be Twitter, Instagram, X, were all not developed in Uganda. These are all platforms coming out of the country with different intentions that we don't know of. It could be, yes, money, but what happens after the money? Yeah, what was the intention of developing WhatsApp? What was the intention of developing Twitter? So all those things come back to digital literacy, like Omega mentioned. I don't know if I'm still in line with the question, but yeah, if in our different organizations we can still do the work that we are doing, like at our internet, we do digital literacy trainings where we teach people basic digital security safety skills, or online tips that they can use. Simple as installing two-factor authentication. So if I have 2FA installed on my phone, I at least have some bit of control. I don't have control over the app and what the app puts out there, but then I have control of who can hack my app, for example. So just putting in place different mitigation measures can help us have a little control, but we do not have control over these platforms.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. We do not have control over this space, and that's pretty much worrying, because at least I know as a physical citizen of Uganda, my government can tell me, please do not cross the border, do not cross this line, especially in these times of elections. But now, since we do not have control there, I wonder who is actually in control, and how much they can control or allow me actually to go beyond my limits as an individual. But thank you so much for that submission, and I think it contributes heavily to what we are trying to find out in this conversation. And Sedrick, you had that, and now I want to understand, because for any society, because this space is ideally this virtual society that we live in, the digital space. And Omega, rather, Sanyu here just told us that we do not have control, but ideally any reasonable human being should be able to understand, if they are to operate in a specific society, the rules, the regulations, the do's and don'ts of the particular society. And I want you to help us understand, first of all, how do we lose track from doing what we are supposed to do, and we slide into the line of now misinforming, disinforming, and indeed actually carrying it on more and more, and many people getting onto that trend. And before we know it, the whole probably community, village, region, country has wrong information about a particular matter, and they continue sharing that. How do we lose track? And certainly maybe what sort of indicators are there that people can look at to say that, oh, actually, I think there is a misinformation or a disinformation campaign here, and certainly we should not to be part of it. Yes, Sedrick, how do we get into this concept, and how do we actually recognize it and understand that this is what it is?
Okay, perfect. So, first of all, good afternoon, everyone. To me, it's a pleasure to be here today as we reflect on this important conversation on exploring the scope of online freedom and misinformation during the election times. And to me, by the way, I'm a victim of this. Actually, I was contemplating to be in this space because just, the past 1 week, I've been having a huge chunk of misinformation that has been flowing around me in the election time. And we understand that in today's world, digital platforms have become, the mainstream, the main arena where citizens share their ideas, people debate politics. Sorry, I'm having my shades because the sun is too bright, and where people hold very accountable conversations. And to me, online freedom simply allows people to express themselves, to access information, and then to participate in shaping the future of our country. Because we have moved past the age where people have to go look for newspapers, people have to look for this and that to really get fast information. Right now, information is at in our hands. Because to me, first of all, there's a difference between disinformation and misinformation. Now, I don't know if my context is right, but I might like communicate a particular information with a very clear content or intent, and then it turns out to be something different. That is misinformation. But then disinformation, you really purposely try to divert from the actual uh, context because you want to really bring your own agendas. And someone really said one time that the freedom to speak is also the freedom to participate, and in elections or the power to participation is very important. But at the same time, we cannot ignore the rise of misinformation and disinformation in the tech world, because false stories, manipulated content, and targeted propaganda, where everybody's trying to come with propaganda and everything, they have a huge power to mislead voters, to create divisions, to even threaten peace during elections. That is why sometimes you see that internet has switched off. This is going off because back in the days it was physical, but now the internet has a very big influence in this. There is Winston Churchill one time said that a lie gets halfway around the world before the truth has a chance to even put on its pants. That is the truth. When you bring false information, it will spread as fast as possible, and the reality of the truth will not go in check. But to me, as being a tech person and someone from a tech background, so I feel there are a few challenges. Sorry, I was about to switch into my local language, and I'm in the village right now, so I was about to switch to my local language. Yeah, so I think there are a few things that people need to know. And to me, the first thing that I wanted to say actually last is empowering the local citizens about digital literacy, because as my sister said, 2FA and a two-factor authentication, and making people understand that um, these are the things you have to know. These are the things you need to verify. You need to check on this, because if I chance meeting any information that is online, people are talking about this and that, I'm not going to spend time to fast check it. And then, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Yeah, someone is trying to call me up. So yeah, so I think citizens need to really be empowered in a way that they have to understand what is right and what is not right. And to me, the biggest people that could clearly uh, be able to confront misinformation are people who are not silenced. For example, I'm not in the civic space that much. For example, the law stuff and everything like that. People will really come up and speak for the rights of the people and stuff. But I think there are two sets of people that can really clear us on the guide. One is the civic people, the civic people, the lawyers, the legal persons who actually understand what law is. Because some of these propagandas and some of the things that are brought forth, they're even brought by the actual individual, let's say the contestants, the candidates, and so forth. But then another big category of people, these are the media houses. And Let me give an example. Recently, I had a very uh, big, misconception and then misinformation about a lot of political, programs happening, literacy and so forth. And I stood to be in the middle of all these conversations. And when, I personally didn't want to discuss this because I was trying to just process and see how information was going. And I was a victim because I was in between the two big giants, the two big ministers who are competing for the same position. And the information that was going online, every time I open my WhatsApp, I see different articles, different stories coming up. And I am the one who knows the truth. I am the one who actually should clear the way, who knows the truth that this is Sedrick, this is what has happened, this is what happened, this is how it should be solved. So the only way we were able to clear out, because every single moment you sit and then you see another so-called investigators articles coming up online, and you have no idea of the truth, where they're getting their sources from and everything. So the mainstream media, which the local people, because and as much as we talk about digital, there are people out there who are not digital. There are the locals there who listens to radios, they just listen to radios. They sit, listen to radios the whole time. Let me give an example. In my village, a lot of people don't have
Yes,
cell phones.
as you try to conclude with that, sir.
Yes, yes. So in my village, a lot of people don't have smartphones and they believe the radios are the best platform they can listen to. So we had to go to the airwaves and clear and make them understand the truth. So to me, I think the civic and then the big mainstream medias that handles or reaches out to more people would be a key thing, and also to literally educate and people understand the digital literacy and how to go about with all these solutions. I mean, all these errors that are happening in misinformation and disinformation.
All right. Thank you so much, Sedrick, for that very good submit thought you share with us here on this topic. And that's quite helpful with a lot of insights to reflect on in this journey. And I want to hear from you, Michael. First of all, you are welcome. And two, having been a student leader for some time at the level of higher institutions of learning, I want to hear from you because you realize this digital space, the people that are very much active in that space are actually students at that level, universities, institutions, and we have huge numbers in this country. And I want to understand, first of all, how do you people manage information you get online, and how do you verify that actually maybe this is information that we can rely on and this is not reliable? And certainly, are there any mechanisms that you as student leaders, but also students, think about that would assist them in ensuring they are able to separate what is correct information, what correct campaigns and campaigns of disinformation and misinformation in the institutions? Yes, Michael.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Moderator, Mr. Phillip. I came a bit late. My network was a bit disturbing. You know, I come from local areas of Manafa in eastern Uganda, and these are one of the challenges which we face as online beneficiaries in local places. Thanks for giving the opportunity. First of all, my name is Michael. As you said, Mr. Muliisa, I've been a student leader at Advocay University. So served as a lead president from 2023 to 2024. Now you have talked of how all this online freedom, all the user information on the platform, how as we leaders always come up with measures, maybe how to know that this is the right information and how this information is flown maybe to other parties in an institution. You know, we young men, being the most people on social media, statistics show that from 15 to 35, we are the people who use more internet. This means that we are the ones who consume let's say, the misinformation. We are the ones who consume the information which is aimed at maybe inciting violence on social media handles. But then, as leaders, we always involve genuine ways. So we are saying if there is an information which has been flown in, as a leader, do you just wake up and spread it to other stream platforms, or you need to verify with different stakeholders at the institution? And this is what we have been doing at Advocay University. That if there is an information which is coming maybe from the public relations department, we need to verify that information so that students are going to consume this specific information. Because if we just wake up and give these students information which is not good, students are students are going to use this information either to stand against the institution or to stand about the values of the institution, or about, for example, this election period, Mr. Muliisa, we see that a lot is targeted to the audience. The audience are the young. The young have the phones. If you are giving them the wrong information and they take it, they are going to stand up, use it, and it's going to be against the process of the election. Hello,
yes, thank you, Michael. And it's you proceed with your submission, but maybe if you can be a little louder. I see a comment here that certainly you are not loud enough. But two, it is amazing when you talk to, and I speak to a lot of university students, institutional students in many of the spaces I moderate, but also the engagements I do, and you're amazed at how sometimes how ignorant they are about matters that are happening in society. But two, sometimes when they have some information, the extent at which the information they have is wrong. It's worrying, and you get to imagine, because we understand world over, it is actually the university population that gets to determine the direction of the nation, because this is the sharpest intellectual base of any country. And I don't know what's happening at the universities, and in this generation where you have the smartphones, you have the internet, and you can just by a few clicks here and there, you're able to get this information. What is the reason, first of all, for the lack of information, but two, extremely having wrong information always? You would be amazed. You could go to an institution and typically ask how many people, for example, know about the election calendar in the country, and you'll be amazed. What's happening?
You are very right, Mr. Muliisa. You know, most of our students, or most of our young people, their attention is not sparking enough on current issues. Like now, we are in the process of election, but you are going to get that these young people at university, they are more interested in fashion, they are more interested in football. So information which is targeting the people for the good and the will of them to decide their future leaders. You see that most of the students are not aware of it, because they take more time on use the things like watching football, engaging in TikTok, see pornography. But then we are saying, if the space, the online space, you're supposed to get information, and this information are going to use it for the good of the will of the people. For example, we are going to elections, but we are seeing, for example, let's say in the past 3 weeks, we had misinformation on the internet where it was circulating that the Prime Minister of Uganda has been beaten. So you wonder, how can a Prime Minister of Uganda be selected against a common person when he has bodyguards? So was that information genuine or it was not genuine? But because our young people cannot know about that, they will just come to rush and conclude that yes, the Prime Minister was beaten without digesting the issue. And that is it. Because the internet is now awash with things which are aimed at eroding maybe the electoral process, eroding the image of the institution of the Electoral Commission. We are going to see that people who aim to turn the image of the Electoral Commission are going to come with malicious stuff put on social media. You see there are things which have been which are coming in the country, which are fake. You see people, if you don't do this, you're going to do this. You know, you see there's going to be a commotion somewhere. You see, you know, those whole stuff. So if young generation, like we students, don't use the internet very well, we may end up lacking behind the best information during the election process in some way.
All right. Thank you so much, Michael, for that. And I appreciate that. Hopefully, we can see things getting to change as we move on as a country, because we need the strength and vibrancy of that part of the population, which actually covers about 22% of the population, according to the Uganda Bureau of Statistics. It will be helpful if they actually have the right information and they're able to act around it. We are joined by Priscilla Amuge here. Priscilla, I wonder if you are in Bukedea today or wherever you can be. You are welcome to the conversation, but too, by way of engaging you educationists, I understand you were a teacher. And many years ago when I was studying in primary school, I remember being told that, for example, John Speake discovered River Nile. And for some reason, I don't know whether the other people that were around there were blind. And I would consider that some sort of mis or disinformation, depending on how anyone would choose to justify that reason. And I want to understand your role as educationists in, first of all, teaching your learners to be able to look out for this misinformation, for the disinformation, but two, trying to change the historical phenomenon of misinformation, because there's a lot of things that were distorted through history, and we continue living with them. And when you grow and get exposed to some of the original pieces of information, you're amazed at how you were lied to many years ago. And what is your role as educationists, and what are you doing to make sure, especially now that we are talking politics and electoral season, what are you teaching the learners, the pupils, the students on how they should engage with the electoral season, and indeed making sure the information they have is right so that they are able to make the right decision in the election? Yes, Priscilla.
Okay, thank you so much, Phil, for this opportunity. Hope I'm clear.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so a good morning to everyone, the panelists and the audience that are outside there listening to us. So as educationists, we really have a big role to do in this country, especially with the kind of the misinformation and the disinformation that spreads wide, especially now with the booming up of the internet, where anyone wakes up in the morning, posts what he or she thinks about, and starts getting followers. So at the end of it all, you find that the information spreading could be false, or actually could not be true at the end of it all. So first of all, let me take it in a perspective of a teacher. We are supposed to impact knowledge to the learners. And this being the electoral time where we are having campaigns, where we need to teach learners how to be patriotic to their nation, what their role is in the politics, and how much they can contribute in building their nation, I feel it becomes a more priority for us to do that as teachers. Now, on the aspect of the information that we give outside there, it's true, Phil, just like you've said, history has a lot of distorted information that we later come on to realize that actually this could have been true, or this could haven't been true, or this could have been like fabricated, or something to do like a made information. Someone just comes up with an assumption and then creates it, and people tend to believe in it. So young people outside there, first of all, need to understand their roles as a citizen of a country. How can they participate? That is, if their age allows them to participate, that is in case they're 18 years and above. So it's not just about participating, it's about giving these citizens the knowledge as to why they think their participation is vital in the elections. You know, it would be very good for us to tell these citizens, or let me say my learners at school there that are in that bracket of 18 years and above, that you know what, your vote can change the problem of the insufficient social services that your community lacks. How would I make this learner understand it? I would then tell the learner, you see, if the previous person that has been in authority is not able to give you the services, the social services that we pay taxes for to get, then your vote can speak. Your vote can bring a change. You know, this particular learner or student goes to vote knowing the reason as to why he's voting or she's voting and the impact that his or her caste is going to put on both economic and the social development of his community and the country at large. For many years, we have been following history where we believe on other people's perception, unlike the reality of what we see today. You see, sometimes it even becomes challenging for us to teach learners what democracy is, and yet when we give a flashback to what is happening, we actually don't see that democracy. So that is where we get now the misinformation coming in. The learner will question you and say, teacher, you know what, you said democracy, this, it has to be peaceful, there is transition of power from this, there is freedom of speech and expression, but what is then happening in reality? You get it? So it may sometimes paint a picture to you, that the teacher, to the learner, that maybe you're lying to this learner. Because this learner will say, if in the book I'm seeing freedom of speech and expression, but what I'm seeing happening in my country is actually different. Now, that is where we get mixed understanding of the concept. So it really calls for a lot for you to bring that clear picture of what then democracy looks like. But then secondly, we can't only bend on that. I believe that we can still continue engaging these learners on actually having to see that, okay, if let's say this is what is happening in their particular country, but their vote can change. I mean, their vote can bring about a change. If, for example, we are having a leader in power that is not working upon people's needs, he's only doing things that benefit him and his people, then I believe we can still use this democracy knowledge or information that we have to tell this learner that, you know what, since this particular person in power has not been able to fulfill his manifesto, we can call for what we call change. And for change to occur, it is only through your vote. So there, the learner then knows the value of him or her participating in election. As also educationists, since phenomena that, okay, there are some information that we really read and we feel they were valid in the, maybe let's say the 20th century. This information was really very key and important. But now we are in the 21st century where we have a lot of changes that have taken place, both in political structures, the social life, the economic factors, and the economic lifestyles of the people. I feel it's of a better view for us to have what we call maybe a review on some of the documentaries that have been long published ago. I think for us to give updated information to the people so that we don't have this kind of doubt among the citizens when they read what was written in the 20th century, predicting with what is happening in the 21st century. Then I think with that kind of mechanism, we can then see that the issue of misinformation, disinformation can actually be solved if we work together as a team to see all this. But of course, it can't only be achieved by educationists. It is a stakeholder dialogue and engagement where we'll need support from all the stakeholders. We wouldn't want to wake up one day and publish something that maybe the government feels is oppressive, Maybe it is not good for the consumption of the citizens, and then bring out issues that could actually land some of our lives into threats, or making it look like we are blackmailing our own country. So it is not a one-person problem, but it is a stakeholder engagement to see that what we give to our people is the rightful information that is going to positively impact their lives in the social, economic, and the political aspect of this country. I beg to submit.
All right. Thank you so much, Priscilla, for that very wonderful submission you make. And you talk about reviewing the information that is being given out. It is very amazing how you get in a typical school and they are teaching learners about the first, second industrial revolution, and they are telling them how that is how Uganda will be transformed. They are probably teaching them about Canadian prairies. I don't know whether that is still on the syllabus. I don't know, British Columbia, and with a very quick Google search, you can find out that actually that no longer exists, and ideally you are teaching them fiction or probably something to refer to for history. But thank you so much for that submission, and I hope it can be worked on. And colleagues, we are still on Community Voices Uganda, and we are discussing online freedoms. We are discussing misinformation, disinformation, and indeed how we can make sure we have a responsible citizenry through this election season, because it is important for us to have the right information so that we are able now to choose the right leaders based on the right reasons, as opposed to being manipulated and indeed ending up with the people that will not deliver for the people and the country. And Omega, I want to come back to you. See, there is this thing called freedoms and rights. And earlier you spoke about responsibilities and things to do with that. And we know that every society is regulated, and you mentioned the laws earlier on. And I want you to create for us, where do we draw the line between online freedoms, rights, but also the regulations? Ideally, a typical online citizen will tell you, provided I do not violate the terms of use of the service provider, then I'm okay to do whatever I want, and they'll post whatever they like there. If it violates the terms of policy, then probably if it's on X, Elon Musk will pull it down, or if it's Facebook, Zuckerberg will pull it down. But if that doesn't happen, then they think they are okay to put out whatever they want. And of course, they will tell you freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of this and that. And yes, we want the freedoms. We are speaking democracy. We are part of the free world. But where do we draw the line between us exploring these freedoms, these rights that are very important for us and should not be, you call them inalienable rights, you're the lawyers, but also making sure we are compliant with the law. I know now we have the Computer Misuse Act, we have a lot of acts that relate to that. We have the regulators, you spoke about NITA earlier, we have UCC, we have a lot of that. How do we balance these two to make sure that we have our freedoms, but also we do not break down on the laws and end up on the wrong side of the regulators and indeed the law enforcement? Yes, Omega.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. Rights and the freedoms that come in the digital world. So constitutionally, you have your rights. You have the right to access information. That is why you're going on Facebook, not so. You have the right to express yourself, to go online and make the biggest fuss. If you woke up and had a bad dream, you have the right to go online and say that you had a bad dream. You have the right to your liberty, right? So you have all these rights, and all these rights are sort of, for lack of a better word, I'll say informational rights. Okay? The rights that are dealing with communication, the way that you relate with with people. That is why in the beginning I had said that the digital world is an extension of what we have in person, right? So let us start from there in finding the balance. If something does not make sense online, then it cannot make sense physically, and vice versa. So, and then you have, of course, the legal framework, you have the data protection laws, international and domestically. Okay? But still, we are seeing a challenge, right? in the presence of laws, things are not adding up, right? And that is why I said the digital world is something that, luckily or unluckily, the world is catching up to as we go. Maybe just to put this for you in an election sort of setting, because we're really talking about elections today. So you find that you ask yourself, what is an election, right? An election is, I had written it down here, I found the definition so interesting. It's the way people vote, right? Their decision to make a choice. So in just that question of what an election is, there is the question of voter behavior. So what is voter behavior? Voter behavior are those thoughts, those patterns that influence the way people will make a choice. So I had some of them down here jotted. So you find that how people decide, right? So what are those patterns? What are those thoughts? I remember Murungi had shared that her road is there is a bit of dust, right? So if there is another person on the call, and they did some research and found out who is the MP for that area, so that is what influencing voter behavior is. What are those patterns? What are those thoughts that are going to influence your choice to make an election? So there are very many factors that influence voter behavior. So you have party loyalty. I'm a UPC person, I'm an NRM person, I'm a DP person. You have identity, you have what their friends say online. So you're seeing how it is cutting into information. Because the question of elections is a question of democracy, right? So if you have voter choice being influenced by information, then that information must be exact. It must be purposeful. It must not be misinformation or disinformation or malinformation. So you'll find that with misinformation, it's misleading information, but there is no intention to deceive. So you're misinformed. Philip, you misinformed me that the meeting was at 11:10. You see, the intention there is what counts. So with disinformation, there is deliberate deceptiveness. So I can give an example in this election context. Let's assume our President Museveni does a tour of Uganda and skips out Karamoja. So you find that misinformation would be a paper sort of saying one county left out. There is no, of course it was left out, or one municipality, whatever, left out. But disinformation would be to say something like, President undermines or intentionally, you see, that type of, and these small things are what
ignores Karamoja.
Karamoja's something like Karamoja left behind once again. Then you know how they write. So why am I giving you all these examples? Because you'll find that in the realm of digital rights, we are dealing with so many parties. You're dealing with the state, which has the right to actually make sure that me and you are safe. You are dealing with big tech, which is saying that, you know what, this is a business. As our business is the business of information and communication, you're dealing with human rights. So you have these intersections in there. It's sort of a jumble, but I can give you just one more example. You can have the example of Moses Ali. You remember Moses Ali when you went to pick the form? So you can see how was that, the way that was reported, how did it possibly affect voter behavior, right? Moses Ali has this and this disease, he's incompetent to, you understand? He's incompetent to. So all the people that would potentially have actually made the choice for this person to be their representative are relying on a piece of information that, if not true, disqualifies a person. We've seen it with so many female candidates, attacks on the reputations of people. And all this information is not fact-checked, by the way. I could wake up right now and go and say that, I don't even know what example I can use, because most of them are just malicious. Someone just wakes up in the morning and says, you remember when someone accused Dr. Kizza Besigye of rape, right? You remember? Or I wake up in the morning and I say, this and this happened, or this and this happened. What is the fact checking? Of course, that particular case was subject to the judicial process. But we are living in a realm where there is just so much information, it is not being fact checked. And in the context of elections, you find that there are people actually losing out on the opportunity because you're sort of slandered. Then you don't have the opportunity to even say the things that you want. So that is called political participation. Your participation in the political arena goes down. So you have things like algorithms, right? These are systematic ways something is what? Systematic systems. Okay? I can give you an example of what an algorithm is. If you open Instagram and you see that audio of Matia Kasaija saying that colleagues, the money will come, right? So the system on Instagram will say that, oh, this is a trending audio. So you'll find that all influencers, in a bid to reach more people, will be aligned to use a certain what? Audio. Yeah? Or to say something like Museveni is very, very stupid. You see, so people use it. But what you don't know is that there is an algorithm behind what? That the more you use it, the more it is being pushed to people. The more it is being pushed to people, the more that information is actually coming to me and you and influencing the way that we think, right? So again, like I said, there are so many stakeholders in this. So you'll find that fact checking, what is the role of fact checking? Whose job is it? You see? So you find actually that companies, independent companies.
So ideally, when I listen to you, Omega, it sounds like you are telling me, first of all, we have a duty to make sure all the stakeholders undertake their responsibilities in this sector.
Yes.
And when they do so, then ideally the citizens should be able to follow within the templates created by these, first the regulators, the companies, and so that we have harmony in operating this space. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. So maybe just what I can add on to what you said is that I've heard very many times that people say that, data protection starts with you and me. And it is a statement I extremely disagree with. Data protection does not start with you and me. Because me and you, if we are to count the percentage of influence that we have in the digital arena, it could be close to nothing. You could do each and everything, but if big tech is not doing their role, then it's utterly useless, right? So what is the place of all this misinformation and disinformation in the system? So you'll find that it has very adverse effects. So for example, eroding trust in the electoral system. You remember in the last electoral cycle, you would just see pop-ups of this is the tally results of this area, and things are made up, like things are extremely made up. By the time the electoral commission is coming to say that it is wrong, people have already, it even results into horrible things like mob justice. People start fighting one another. Or I could give you another example, leaked letters of Museveni. You've seen this all over social media, right? The president has said this and this and this. It is a letter. Is it stamped? What is the fact checking around things? But then also, when we go back to big tech companies, it's the question of identification, very small things. And of course, this information, this digital system that we have, it has a place in political mobilization. I remember one time I joined a meeting, and it was really, you remember when the protests were happening, the young women were protesting, and people were organizing themselves on X, and they were saying this and this is how we are going to do it. This is our purpose. So the digital space has a role and something it can play, but you must hold all stakeholders accountable. Just one last thing. I can give you the example of verification of names online, right? So if you're an influencer, you can verify your name. But that is just another example of profiting off it. You see, why is it that only people that pay can verify their names? So the question of identity, please stop. I'm just trying to get this person to lower their name and continue their stop. So why is it that only people that pay can verify their identities online? Is it not a right for you to have access to the internet, right? Why aren't these systems actually these companies actually coming up with verification models and saying that, you know what, everyone online must go through a certain check, and that check must fit in the database of countries. If you're Phillip Mulungi, you have one Phillip Mulungi account, and that Phillip Mulungi account is backed up. We know in case this person commits a crime, we know how to, that traceability. But you see, we have an account, we have this and this. So this realm presents also interesting opportunities for certain areas. So for example, who is an influencer? Have we thought about that as a country? People are spreading, misinforming and disinforming and malaligning in the name of influencing. Our influencers actually up to par with data protection laws that, you know what, before you get on a platform and say, I am going to say this and this and this, I must be in tandem with this. So I really just want to, lastly, in closing, is yes, you have the data protection laws, you have the responsibilities, but this field that we are dealing with, especially in a time as sensitive as elections, it is really now to say that there are so many stakeholders here, with the end user being the person that has the least power. The state, I could actually go and say that countries, the states themselves, have more power to influence the sphere that we are in, because they have that enforceability to say that we've shut down Facebook. You've seen things around that. Okay.
All right, thank you so much, Omega, for that. That's quite good you share with us, and we appreciate it. And Sanyu, I come to you. There are these words, fact checking. Who does the fact checking, and how do we actually do it? And does every citizen have the ability to do that? But two, in trying to fight this misinformation, what is the role of actually the service providers, the tech companies? What can they do to assist us in this process? But three, there is another challenge of censorship, either by the regulators or individual censorship, actually. And I want to understand, because if we are trying to fight misinformation and you realize sometimes, for example, media companies, but also individuals who would actually have very important information could end up choosing not to share it because of the fear of the information being distorted or taken out of context and used for other purposes. And what is the impact of this, and how can we work around all this to harmonize this environment? Yes, Sanyu.
Thank you so much, Philip, and everyone else on the call. That's quite an interesting question, because most of the time, by like how Omega and so many other panelists have shared, by the time this information is out there, it has already spread. So by the time fact check has come in, it won't move as the first information moved. So false information really moves so fast. We've seen campaigns happening online, and maybe Airtel will be attacked about money is disappearing off people's accounts, MTN doing the same. By the time MTN sends in an official notice that is false news, that is false information, we've already gotten the algorithm has already moved what it needed to move. I hope you get what I'm trying to mean. Like what Omega mentioned, by the time fact check has come in to say, this is wrong, this is not true, this is how it's supposed to be, this is what the company stands for, we've already gotten the information that needed to spread out. For the example Omega used of Honorable Kasaija, the video of money will come. That is all we picked from whatever, the entire information that she shared on that day. We only picked money will come. And that is what has been circulating over social media.
Because it should come anyway.
And it has come anyway. The budgets are out. But to go back to your question, what is the role of big tech companies? I honestly feel big tech companies have to go back to the grassroots people, to the society, because this is so much rooted in society. For example, we've all faced it with our aunties, family members, forwarding videos of this is happening in your country, this is happening in your community, without them really checking where is this coming from, what is the intent of this video moving around. We've seen messages of my mom keeps sending me messages of MTN hacking my phone. So she'll tell you, oh, Uganda police is doing this, so watch out. And these are messages that honestly are not true. And they're just circulating. She just keeps forwarding them, maybe out of caution that I should take care of my security. I should maybe be cautious. This is happening. But most of the time, those things are not happening. They just also keep forwarding these messages without them thinking. It also goes back, why I say big tech companies have to go back to the grassroots of society to the community is because it also goes back to simple conversations, like a conversation you hold with your border person, a conversation you hold in church. When you talk about elections in church, how fast does that information move, right? How fast does a conversation, there's conversations around police management, TikTok videos that we keep watching. It's those conversations that we have with the community people that later spread to the internet world, that then circulates again and again and again and again because of the algorithm. So it's not just about fact checkers producing right information after, but how do we hold these conversations when we are down there in the community? So I also think big tech companies have to rethink the content that is out there. For example, you see, when you're applying, when you download an app on your phone, the first thing they will ask you to agree to are the terms and conditions. How many people read the terms and conditions? I personally first go through the first page, and because I do work in the tech world, I mainly know what happens in the first page. So I always go for the last page because that is where the juice is, and that is where the agreement is. So most people do not actually read those.
Maybe I should ask you still about that. Yes, good for you. You go through the last page. That's where the juice is. But in case you don't agree to the terms, but you want to use this app, what happens? Do you ignore the app because you've not agreed with the terms? You need WhatsApp, you need X, but you don't agree with a specific term. Can you challenge the company?
You can. I don't think you can challenge the company, Philip, but you need to. You remember these apps are all free. Whatever we get from the big tech companies is free. We do not pay to use WhatsApp. We do not pay to use Facebook. We do not pay to use TikTok. Yeah. So how do they then benefit from us? Is through, in quotes, the terms and conditions that they know we shall not read. Yeah. So if you do not agree to the terms and conditions, of course, you're not going to get the app, because that is the only policy they also have against us, right? When you agree to the terms and conditions, what happens? What happens in the back end? Information is collected, websites do collect whatever they need to. They collect data that is later sold on. We've always recently had people quote data as the new gold, and it is. We constantly have these apps on our phones for free, and they keep taking our data without our consent or without our knowledge. So same applies to the information that we keep consuming on the internet.
Yes, the data is very expensive. We understand the tech companies themselves are buying data from each other, but two, governments are also buying this data and for their intelligence, and indeed, of course, even on the other end, rebel groups, terrorist organizations also buy the data, and if you have it, then you have a chance to make money off this data that you have. Yes, so, yeah. And that should be worrying to anyone.
Yeah, it should be worrying. Also, to just go back, you also mentioned what would we do as consumers of this information. I think we also need to do a lot of fact checking before sharing these links, before sharing this information that we've seen online. First, sit down and ask yourself, where is this coming from? Who sent me this message? What was the intention for sending this message? If a post is put out there by maybe Dr. Spire and there's a campaign running, do a fact check as a person. Ask yourself, is this really happening? Do some research before you share that information, before you retweet, before you repost. What can you do as a person who consumes this information? Is just asking yourself those few questions and getting answers before sharing.
All right, thank you so much, Sanyu, for that. You've done so well in responding to that. And Michael, I want to hear from you. So the concept of online safety and relating it to cyberbullying, especially in the political season. How can we manage this challenge in our society, especially you people in university setups and dealing with students. Sometimes they tend to be quite violent online, and people have been crying everywhere because they are attacked online, and a lot of information is shared. There are candidates whose deep fakes, and you get I don't know, people sharing people's nudes, people sharing information that is not true. How can we make sure these fault in society so that we have actually only the right information moving around people? Yes, Michael.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Muliisa, again for the opportunity. Now, if you are talking of cyber harassment and bullying on social media, I think it's a fair reflection that most of the people who are targeted are the online users mostly. But then these people who are being harassed on social media, maybe they are posting stuff on social media handles which you don't have consent on it, and then at the end your reputation is being tarnished. So in institutions, what is best, which can be best done to handle that issue is, I think the strict censorship of this platform. Let's say in institution, for example, if there is, there are AI detectors which can say that this content is labeled harmonious to the community, this content is not good for the public consumption. I think that would be the best option. Then also the government and the other social media handle, the UCC, they have to come with strict censorship so that everyone who is trying to use social media, who is trying to post something on social media, they need to censor these things so that the consumption out there does not harm another person. Because these things of cyber harassment, someone is coming, for example, on social media, is putting information which is targeted to tarnish your reputation, abusing you. For example, being in the NRM elections, they were putting on social media, someone comes and writes about a fake propaganda about that. So all that one is a target to either reduce on someone's property in this special election, and which is very wrong. So the government has to come in. Government has to come in and respect laws which are going to deter these online people who aim at harassing the people online, who engage in cyber crime. Other measures could be if you put up credible avenues where this online stuff can be evaluated, that this is good for consumption in the public. So if this one is not good for consumption in the public, it must be labeled harmonious, the public not to be uploaded on social media. And this is the initiative which is done by the government. Because if the government doesn't do that, then for us as young people, we shall continue going to internet, to use internet in wrong ways. We upload things which are going to turn the images of maybe the political aspirants, our friends in schools and other social affairs of life.
All right. Thank you, Michael, for that. And Priscilla, going forward, the season is here. People have to talk. People will tweet. People will have posts across. What do you foresee happening in this electoral season, or what have you actually already seen? I understand we have a lot of powerful candidates from Bukede, but too at the national level. What do you foresee happening? And certainly, maybe in your view, do you think that citizens actually have can try to control themselves and have a better understanding of this space and how they can participate constructively, as opposed to being a nuisance on the online space? Yes, Priscilla.
Okay, so Thank you so much again. So first of all, I feel like there is a way the politics of this nation has become monetized, and it has taken away people from actually the real essence of what campaign then looks like. You see, when you go down there and ask people in the village, who would you vote for? Someone would tell you, I'm going to vote for someone who has given me something. So you see, it has changed from voting for quality, voting for the person's ability, voting for someone's capability, to voting for someone who has given me salt, who has given me 2,000 shillings, or someone who has actually bought me a drink. That is the trend of the politics we are having now. Then second, on the thing of citizens becoming a nuisance and then not voting for what they're supposed to do. You see, I think then there is some trend that is coming on now. You see, when you over suppress or oppress the citizens, they reach a time and they say, we have given up. Let them do what they want. So even if we try to engage these people on the civic education of how, elections should look like, how it benefits them, how it will build the country, they tell you, you're wasting your time. Why? Because they already feel they are not valued. The system does not value them. The system does not work for their needs. So they feel it becomes then useless for them to go and vote. That is why you'll find on the days of voting, people remain in their homes, sleeping, watching, drinking. Why? Because they know even if I go outside there and cast my vote, it will then not change anything. That is how bitter people are. Someone tells you, as long as it's not going to tamper with my peace, my social welfare, I don't care. You get it? That is how tired people are because of the system being oppressive. So even if you try to engage them, a few will listen. The majority will tell you nothing is going to change at the end of it all. Then I feel the other thing is that how I wish the stakeholders, the Electoral Commission, the army and the police would really try to respect the human rights. You see, yesterday's news, they showed us a guy who was actually arrested, I think in Mbarara, for singing a song of one of the political party contestants. Get it? So when you go ahead to follow, why was this guy arrested? Basically, he was not using hate speech. He was not talking against anyone. He was just singing a song of a political party. And I think that is why he gets to be arrested. When we try following up, accusations come in. So you see, that small picture is enough to demoralize many Ugandans down there, especially those who are in the rural setting. You see, the fact is people fear police. We fear police. You see, just someone even seeing police coming around, people already in fear. People think police is danger. Actually, that is the kind of image we have nowadays. It's not the peace and order people. Those days we would respect. Nowadays, the trend has changed. They step on our rights the way they want. When you go to get justice, the justice is denied. So why wouldn't the people then become a nuisance in community? Why would the people then refuse to vote? You see, they have justifiable reasons as to why they would not participate in this country's political elections, for reasons well justified. Because trust me, if I'm going to vote for my candidate and then I'm tear gassed, I lose the morale. I lose the energy to go and cast the vote. You get it? So if we continue having this kind of trend of things going through, it's going to take us a long time to realize the change we want, because the people who should bring about the change are already disillusioned about the political situation of their own country, which it becomes very hard to convince them to come and cast the vote. But we are not yet too late. The major problem is the central system, I think. If these people can respect our rights, do not torture us, do not have cases of abduction, brutality, affect our freedom of expression, I think we can build a better Ugandan where even someone as young as 18 years can wake up and say, I am responsible for the growth of my country, and to contribute to positively bringing about the development, I need to participate in the elections. I think then that would be a better trend for us to take.
All right. Thank you so much, Priscilla, for those recommendations you make. And colleagues, like you notice, our time is very much fast spent, and this is a beautiful conversation and indeed very important. But at some point, we have to come to a close, and I can see we have about 4 minutes to be out of here. So I will perhaps grant a minute to one to Omega and one to Murungi to give us a final remark about the conversation, and we shall be able to come to the end of the conversation. And I think I'll start with you, Omega. Going forward, what would be your final remark about this particular concept we are discussing today in a minute?
Oh, just 1 minute, so it starts now. But my final remarks would be, let us reimagine what the role of stakeholders in data protection, especially in election seasons. So big tech, the state, its role to protect its own people, right? Let the state not act like big tech has leverage over them. No, it doesn't, right? We've seen the government of Uganda actually banning Facebook in the country until it complies with certain standards. As citizens, let us also hold the state accountable, right? When the state bans Facebook, it is interfering with our right to access information. Like I shared, it's a very complicated relationship. It's like a weaved mat. We are all in this together. Secondly, is for bodies like for data protection bodies to ensure much more strict compliance. So you ask yourself, almost every company in this country is supposed to be registered with a data protection office because we are dealing with data. But ask yourself how many political parties have actually gone to register with a data protection office, right? If they had registered, then they would know that, tally information is not supposed to be out there until maybe it is verified by the Electoral Commission, you see. So these laws that are in place are meant for strict compliance because when you register, you come under the oversight of the Data Protection Office. I really, really like what Priscilla has been sharing about civic education, sharing that, we have children in school who have no information what voting is, all right? So is it for our government and our leaders to reimagine what the curriculum looks like when you're talking about the Canadian prairies? Is that something that is still relevant or in touch with today's time? Do you want to go to classes and actually teach about some of these contemporary issues in society? And lastly, to really bring the law up to speed with the digital world that we are in right now. So, for example, what is the effect of disinforming or misinforming? Do you lose your account? Are you banned from using that particular app? Or are they just going to give you a fine? So, like I said, there is a disparity in between what the law is physically and what it is online. You have to bring it up to par that, if you actually went and defamed a person, what would be the repercussion of that in real life? And then if you defame a person online, what is the repercussion of that? Are you facing the same branch of the law? Yes. So I know I said that I find this statement problematic, that data protection starts with you and me, but of course it starts with you and me. And let us add and.
Thank you, Omega, for those thoughts and for the indeed recommendations you make. And Sanyu, yes, your final remark.
Thank you so much, Philip, and everyone on the call. So as we've discussed today, the elections are no longer just fought in rallies like we used to see. They are fought on radio talks, they are fought on TV, they are fought in our WhatsApp groups, on our TikToks that we keep watching each now and then, on Facebook, on all social media platforms. That does not make online freedom. That does not make us to just do things anyhow. But we must remember that freedom does not just come. It is everyone's responsibility. Each one of us has a role to play in protecting the truth, whether it's pausing before forwarding that link, whether it is questioning the source of the video, choosing who to share, verifying information before you share it out. We need to first take it as a personal responsibility, but not just the group, as we've always seen. And then also my simple appeal is, let us guard our online freedoms, challenge misinformation, and ensure that everyone on the internet remains in a place that is true, diverse, and free to everyone to share whatever information they want to share.
Thank you for that. And Omega here mentioned that Facebook, for example, is closed and it is an infringement on our rights. We should also know that currently there is a directive from government to the parent company of Google to register and comply with certain regulations in Uganda. And if they choose to, well and good, but if they don't choose to, then we should be ready for a time when we shall wake up and you can no longer access Google, YouTube, and things like that. And I can't imagine a society that can like that in this day and time. So we hope this company is willing to do that, and hopefully it does, but that would be threatening. Once again, thank you so much, Murungi Sanyu from Internet Uganda. We appreciate your thoughts and the time you had to join the conversation. Omega, Aloyo, Nyeko, thank you so much for your time and for the thoughts you've shared with us on this conversation. Priscilla, Amuge, Bukede, Comprehensive, thank you so much for your time and for the thoughts you've shared with us here on the conversation. And of course, Sedrick, Otolo, who dropped off a while ago. Thank you so much for your time and for the thoughts you've shared with us. And indeed, Michael Wakoli, thank you so much for your thoughts and for the time you have spared to join us on this conversation. Special thanks to you, our viewers on Civic Space TV and indeed Community Voices Uganda for being here, because you are the reason we actually do what we are doing, and certainly we promise to always be here and put up something valuable for you, and like you're going to value from the knowledge, the wisdom, the thoughts, the expressions of the beautiful panel I've had today here. Special thanks to the Center for Constitutional Governance and special thanks to our partners that have made sure that this conversation happens, and of course the RECIP project and the digital rights campaign in this country, but also going forward fighting against misinformation and disinformation, but also ensuring the people know their rights, their freedoms, and indeed the laws that they should abide with to make sure they constructively enjoy these freedoms. Thank you so much, and we look forward to having a society that is responsive to this digital space and living constructively. I am Phillip Muliisa, and let me say, I shall see you next time.